Hey, I'm Adam Jusko from ProudMoney.com, and in this video we're going to answer the question, does getting married affect your individual credit score? But before we talk about that, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already, and if you have already, I thank you for doing so. So I had a family member get married recently, and this person asked me if the other person's bad credit history was going to affect their credit. Now, I'm not going to say what sex we are talking about on either side here because I don't want to feed into any stereotypes that anyone might have, but the question was, this person said, I know we kind of combine our finances and everything. Is their bad credit going to affect my good credit? I don't want my credit score to be hurt. The good news is that your spouse that is great in every other way except his or her credit history is not going to drag down your credit history. So their credit history does not affect you once you get married. However, if your new spouse does have a bad credit history, and perhaps this is obvious, but that bad credit history still could affect your finances in a negative way. Perhaps the most common scenario where bad credit history from one spouse can affect the finances of both people in that marriage is when it comes to getting a mortgage. So if your spouse has a bad credit history and you want to get a new mortgage, you have some decisions to make. You could go just on your own finances and leave your spouse off, meaning you're going to have to qualify for a mortgage based on your own income and your own credit history. And if your spouse has an income and that's being left off of the application because you are qualifying alone, that means you may not qualify for as much house as you would have otherwise, and it also means that it's only going to be your name on the actual mortgage documents. On the other hand, you could include the spouse that has bad credit on your mortgage application, and assuming their credit isn't so bad that it leads to the mortgage not being approved at all, what you end up with is two incomes being on that mortgage application, which could qualify you for more home in terms of how big of a loan they would give you. However, it would be your credit history and the other person's credit history that has a bad credit history, and then obviously what that would lead to is higher interest rates. Now, if I had to make a choice, I would probably say put the home in the name of the person with the better credit history and have him or her qualify for the mortgage loan on their own if possible. The difference in interest rates that you would have, even a small difference in interest rates, can be huge in terms of the amount you pay over the course of a mortgage loan. So even though it would be nice to have that second income in there and maybe qualify for more home than you could with just one person, or qualify for the amount of home that you feel like you can actually handle as a couple, you're still better off to save on that mortgage loan than to bring in that bad credit and make those interest rates rise. On the other hand, if you qualify for a new mortgage with just the person with the better credit history and based just on their income, that mortgage goes just in their name and it is just their responsibility. So hopefully your marriage is very good and there is mutual trust that you together are going to pay for that mortgage loan. And of course, ideally, the person with bad credit would be the one who makes less money, because if you're going to qualify for the mortgage with just one person who has the higher credit score, it would be nice if that person was the one that made more money, but that is not necessarily always going to be the case. So a mortgage is probably the biggest, most important place where a bad credit history from one side or the other in a marriage is going to affect the finances of the marriage overall. Another place that could come into play is in the process of trying to build the credit of the person that has bad credit, because if you as an individual have bad credit, you may have higher interest rates if you get credit cards, you might have fees if you get credit cards, or if you get other types of loans, you're going to have higher interest rates like we just talked about. So if one person has to pay more and you are in a marriage, well then obviously that affects the finances of both people, because in most marriages people have their finances intermingled. Now, a way around that is to make the bad credit spouse an authorized user on the credit cards of the good credit spouse. So if that bad credit spouse becomes an authorized user, he or she can use the credit cards of the other person, and that can help them build their credit, because those on-time payments from the good credit score person are going to end up showing up on the credit reports of the bad credit spouse as well. And making your spouse an authorized user on your credit cards is a great way to build credit. And it can't affect your credit negatively. However, if you haven't done it before, you should understand what it means. When you make someone an authorized user on your credit card, you are allowing them to use your credit card, but they don't have any of the responsibility for paying back that credit card. So if you have a bad credit spouse that maybe is a little spendy, well, then there is the possibility that that person might use your credit card and rack up more charges than you would have on your own with your credit card, but when the bill comes due, you have to pay it. Yes, you two are married, and obviously in most cases you have a trusting relationship where everyone knows what everybody is spending, so when that credit card comes due, you're going to know what those purchases were, at least vaguely, probably in your head, and you together will pay them off. However, if you are in a marriage where you're a little unsure of your partner, there is the possibility that making that person an authorized user would allow them to use your credit cards and leave you holding the bag, not only to pay, but to have your credit score hurt if you don't have the ability to pay. No one wants to tell their new spouse that they're uncomfortable making them an authorized user on their credit cards, which is why you should talk about credit history and finances before you get married. But bottom line, getting married in and of itself is not going to affect your credit score. Each one of you is going to have an individual credit file, and getting married is not going to have any impact on that. However, having a spouse with bad credit can affect your finances overall, so you definitely should take that into consideration as you enter into marriage. So that's my marriage counseling for today. Questions, comments, put them in the comments section below and I'll be happy to answer them if I can. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and as always, please go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews, we talk personal finance, we talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Thank you for watching. Bye.